What in the world has gone wrong with Team India? This team has been struggling with overseas tours now for the last 4 years. But this was their big moment. A young bunch of players in to replace the legends. A young bunch who fans thought would be able to stand up and face the English pace bowlers. And hopes really lit up after the big win at the Mecca of cricket, Lords. But then it's been a tailspin. What's the way forward for Team India? Is it time to sack both coach and captain? Joining us live now from London is the most successful captain India has ever had, and a man who really knows what's wrong because he's seeing the sport from close quarters and hopefully will be able to show the way forward. But before that, I want to focus on Dhoni's blunders. A leg slip placed when batsmen struggle outside the off stump, bowling spinners when the conditions help seamers, picking a bowler when conditions beg for a batsman. Mahendra Singh Dhoni seemed to be all lost in England. The man who once had the Midas touch had another tour that he'd like to forget very quickly. The only bright spot was his own batting, which was better than many others in his team. However, the bottom line is, it's now time for Dhoni and the coach to walk.
He was once the fearless captain of the Indian cricket team, but is steadily being criticised now for being too defensive against England. His tactics questioned, his selection lambasted, his conviction and instincts that once worked are now making the opposition play effortlessly and baffling the experts.
So I think they're getting confused by Jadeja a little bit. So personally, I would play your best 6 batsmen, whoever they are, Dhoni at 7 and your best 4 bowlers. I think
it's not the first time his selection has been questioned. The inclusion of Vinay Kumar at Perth in 2011 and the drafting of an unfit RP Singh at the Oval in 2011 and more recently the inclusion of Stuart Binney at Trent Bridge, all adding to his list of blunders overseas. In fact, in the 27 matches played overseas, MS Dhoni has managed to win only 6, losing 13, while 8 matches have been a draw. At times, it is just inexplicable as to what the skipper is thinking. Why would he not stand up to Jadeja while wicket-keeping on a 5th-day pitch?
I was a bit baffled by some of his decisions, especially standing back to Jadeja at Lords. I just couldn't believe it. I said, am I seeing things here? I had to rub my eyes in disbelief.
The blunders are not confined to him or his batsmen. At Lords, he changed Bhuvneshwar Kumar's end for no apparent reason, after he had picked up 3 wickets from the nursery end. After the 2011 disaster, India has lost its way yet again in England. The question arises, till when does one persist with MS Dhoni? Or has he now become too powerful to control his own destiny? With Shivani Gupta and Boria Majumdar in London, Sports Bureau headlines today.
Let's go across live to London. Joining us, Indian cricketing legend Sourav Ganguly. Dada, you'd shown Team India the way. You showed that it was possible to win abroad. Now we're seeing, under Dhoni, we've lost 13 out of the last 17 overseas test matches. Is it time for the fans, for the BCCI to say enough is enough? It's time to sack both the captain and the coach.
If India wasn't touring Australia, Rahul, I would say yes. I said that 2 or 3 years ago in 2011 when we were getting battered all around. We lost to England, we lost to Pakistan, lost to Australia. I said that was the time for Dhoni to go. Yeah, but probably not at this time because you got the World Cup in 6 months' time. You go to Australia in December, which is going to be a much harder tour than England. I said at the start of the tour on our show that England is beatable. India did beat them in Lords, and since then I have also not fathomed what's the reason for Tim to go through such a dip. But I would continue with MS Dhoni till Australia. But there has to be strong messages sent to him. You know, we really need to pull our socks up in Test cricket. You know, it's not just Test cricket overseas; it's one-day cricket overseas also. We lost to New Zealand all 4 one-day games. We lost to South Africa all 3 one-day games last time when we came to Australia and England, we lost all our one-day games, and I'm telling you, this one-day series is not going to be easy either. Yes, he's on overtime. I always believe that every captain has his shelf life, and Dhoni is probably in the last legs of his shelf life. And if the World Cup wasn't there, India should go for a new captain. But looking at 6 months down the line, you don't need a complete panic at this stage. But I agree with you, the overseas performance has been appalling.
Dada, as someone who's been watching the performance of the Indian team at close quarters, what do you think is going wrong? To fold up in just over 2 days is simply unacceptable. We are hardly being able to last 30 overs. Is it because of the IPL? We've had problems in facing swing bowling for a very long time, but it now seems to be reaching a level where this team is just outright embarrassing to watch.
Yeah, it's been appalling, the last 3 test matches, especially with the way we batted. See, we must remember that India's strength has always been batting. When we started playing well overseas, 2001 till probably 2009, look at the runs we've got abroad: 600, 500, Melbourne 500, Adelaide 500, Sydney 700, Rawalpindi 700. Come to England, we won the series in 2007, Nottingham we got 500. If you don't put runs up on the board, you're not going to win test matches. And the numbers in the last 6 or 7 test innings have been 150, 160, and we complete the circle in the last test when we got all out for 94. So that sums up the story. See, we can criticize, yes, and it needs to be criticized, but a lot of proper thinking needs to go in the way Indian team has to go forward. It's a young team. A lot of the players are new. They've just started their careers or in the early days of their careers, and this team needs help. The selectors have a very important role to play. They need to identify talent. They need to identify the players who are going to take you forward and persist with them. You need proper technical staff next around the players, and I'm not saying support staff. I'm saying technical staff who's going to work with their batting, who's going to work with their bowling. Because, look at Virat Kohli, 20 test matches, Pujara 20 test matches, Ajinkya Rahane 10 test matches, Shikhar Dhawan 7 or 10 test matches. Once that rot starts, once you keep nicking outside the off stump, once you keep getting beaten all the time, these guys don't know how to get back to form. And who's going to advise them? Who's going to tell them? You need somebody who's done this day in, day out, who's going to come to Virat Kohli and say, listen, in seaming testing conditions, when it's bouncing, when it's seaming, you got to approach this technique. You got to get forward, you got to get back, you got to change your stance. And I don't think the Indian captain helped also with his strategies. You look at the 5 test matches. We've had the same batting order all 5 test matches, all test innings. Now when you get battered with the new ball, again the likes of Cheteshwar Pujara and Virat Kohli, shift them, get them to number 5, get them to number 6, put somebody like Ajinkya Rahane, who batted well in the first 3 test matches, push him up the order, let him play the new ball, get them out of that pressure zone at times. You need it. You need it, otherwise, it keeps coming at you. Jimmy Anderson keeps coming at you. Stuart Broad keeps coming at you. You are 0 for 1 every test match, and it doesn't get easier.
Now, what do you think has gone wrong with, say, a Cheteshwar Pujara, a Virat Kohli? These were the big, bright hopes of Indian cricket. Suddenly, from being champions, and someone like a Kohli has performed abroad. It's not like he's only scored runs in India. He has scored in Australia. Now, why is it that a Kohli suddenly finds that he's nicking every ball and not able to get his game together? And the same holds for Cheteshwar Pujara as well, Dada.
Yeah, see, it's form. Form is very important, and once it goes away, quickly when you play 5 test match series, it gets very hard. These young boys have not played 5 test match series. 2 in South Africa, 2 in New Zealand, a couple in Australia. So when you fail a few innings, you're on the flight back to another series, and it's a different ball game. But when you have a 5 test match series with the likes of Anderson and Broad coming at you all the time with high quality swing bowling, it doesn't get easier. It gets harder and harder, and it's going to get harder and harder when we go to Australia. And that's why I say this team needs technical support around these young boys. They need somebody to guide them. Who did Ian Bell go to when they were not playing well, when he wasn't getting runs? Graham Gooch. Because Graham Gooch has got 9,000 test runs. He knows what it is at this level. He knows what it is when you fail. He knows what it is, how to get back and find different ways of getting back. It's not rocket science. India will only play well overseas when they keep batting well. Our bowling, we don't have an Anderson, we don't have a Mitchell Johnson, we don't have a Glenn McGrath, we never had. But when we played well, we got 500, 600, 700 runs on the board, which put pressure on the
Are
opposition.
you then suggesting,
for the
Dada,
bottom
that
line,
it is time to sack the batting coach, the bowling coach, the fielding coach? There's been some talk that action may be taken against them. Do you think even Duncan Fletcher, now how long do you persist with someone like a Duncan Fletcher? He's clearly adding no tangible value to the team. Under him, we've had a disastrous performance. All the gains of the Ganguly era have been lost. If you're saying hold on to Dhoni, do you not think at least it's time to say, Duncan Fletcher, your time's up, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, he's definitely under pressure, and they need to ask strong questions with Duncan Fletcher. When they go back, you see the Indian slip catching, and the number of catches they've dropped, it's unreal. I've not seen any side in world cricket drop so many catches in the first slip, second slip area as I've seen in this series. You don't take catches, you don't win matches. Look what Glenn McGrath has said. He said if the bowlers are not allowed to be taking wickets, you're gone, you don't win test matches. Yes, Duncan Fletcher needs to sit down and answer a few questions, because it's 15 out of 15, 13 overseas test matches India have lost, and they've never looked like winning except the Lord's test match. So yes, Duncan Fletcher needs to be asked that, can you take this team forward? If you can't take this team forward, you have to make room for somebody else. The biggest problem with India at this stage is the World Cup, which is 6 or 7 months away. Now will it be good for them to bring somebody new and start afresh again in a span of 6 months? It's a very short time. It'll go like this before you realize. I completely agree. Both Duncan Fletcher, both Mahendra Singh Dhoni are on overtime, but it's just the 6 months away away of the World Cup, when you cannot just make a Virat Kohli captain, or you cannot make anybody else the new coach or the new manager. Do they need help? Do they need people around them who could actually take this team forward? That needs to be asked, and that needs to be assessed. The selectors need to sit together and say, I need 2 good openers. It's not just about picking anyone who plants this front foot in Indian conditions and gets runs. It's about thinking far. It's about thinking, which guy would get me runs in Australia, which guy would get me runs in England. That is the key. That's the biggest aspect of sport. It's about identifying who's going to do it for you. And at the present moment, when you have 4 of your top 6 not getting runs, you cannot win any form of cricket. India will be under pressure in the one-day series. It's August, September, it's cold, it's raining, the ball's going to swing even more, and life's not going to be easier for them in the next 3 weeks as well.
I have here, Dada, a comment from Sunil Gavaskar. He says, if you don't want to be playing test cricket for India, just quit. Play only limited overs cricket. You should not be embarrassing your country like this. Now, these are very, very strong comments coming from an Indian cricketing legend who's obviously suggesting that there are players in the team who do not want to be playing test cricket for India, and he's asking them to quit. Do you agree with the suggestion that there are players in the current 11 who don't enjoy test cricket, and therefore instead of forcing them to play test cricket, let them just focus on either T20 or one-day internationals, Dada?
No, I don't think so, Rahul. I wouldn't go that far, and I don't want to believe that these young players, they're all young, they don't want to play test cricket. They will be remembered their whole lives with what they do in test cricket. Nobody will remember T20, nobody will remember IPL. Who remembers Michael Bevan? You talk about Australian greats, it's Steve Waugh, it's Mark Waugh, it's Ricky Ponting, who've got tons and tons of runs in test matches. Who talks about Indian greats? It's about Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid, Virendra Sehwag, who gets tons and tons, Vivius Lakshman, who get tons and tons of runs in test cricket. One day cricket, T20 cricket, nobody will remember. And I think hopefully these young boys are thinking that way. I don't think that they don't want to play test cricket. I desperately feel that these boys need support, need technical support. Somehow down the line the BCCI has got to think about this and get people who've done it day in, day out at this level, because it's important. It's never easy.
No, who do you have in mind, Dada? I'm sorry, I think you're being very diplomatic in this interview for some reason. You're saying that continue with Duncan Fletcher. Now, even with just 6 months to go for the World Cup, at some level, tough decisions need to be taken. How long do you persist with the Turkey? He is not being able to deliver the results. Surely it's time to say goodbye, bring someone else in, maybe we'll have a better chance. And more importantly, if you're saying they need only technical support, Who do you have in mind? The likes of Sourav Ganguly, Rahul Dravid were present in London, were present in England when the series was going on. Do you think the older legends need to be brought in to guide the young batsmen? Who do you have in mind? Give me specifics, Dada. You're being too diplomatic tonight.
No, there are whole lot of players in India. Rahul Dravid is one, VVS Lakshman is one, Sourav Ganguly is the other, Sachin Tendulkar is the other, Gavaskar himself, but they will have to be full time with the team, whoever it is. And I'm not going into individuals, and they'll have to be full time with the team. You know, Rahul Dravid coming for 9 days and then going away, it doesn't help. It will not help, because it's about doing at that particular moment. It's about doing in the nets before the test match. You see, England had Graham Gooch right throughout with them. England had Andy Flower as coach, who did it day in, day out at the top level, himself getting runs in turning conditions, getting runs in seaming conditions. So he knows what it takes to score runs at that level. You need that kind of people who will actually help these young boys, because that, for me, that's the way forward. For me, that's the way these young players will have to be harnessed, because there's no time for them to go home, learn their techniques back and come back and play again. It's about on the spot, and to do it on the spot, you will have to have players with them full time on toes. You know, Cheteshwar Pujara, he kept getting knocked in by the incoming delivery from Stuart Broad, and he had the same stance right throughout the series. Nobody asked him to stand up. Nobody came and told him that, listen, when you go to places where there is bounce and pace, you have to go higher up. It's easier to go from high to low and the other from low to high. So you need these sort of help in these conditions, and trust me, Rahul, it makes a massive difference. I'll tell you, before I went to Australia in 2003, and I met the great Zahir Abbas just before the tour, and he said, Sourav, you need to do this in Australia. You're too low in your stance, and you need to get higher. And I went back, I got 100 in the first test in Brisbane. I looked a completely different player. So everyone needs to make adjustments in different in test cricket in different conditions. I remember Mohinder Ramanath coming and telling me before Australia that do this, Sourav, and it changed my game. It does to everyone. You look at Rahul Dravid, he goes and asks, such a great player when he was at his prime. So small technical defects, small problems need to be addressed immediately, and you need technical support, people who have done it day in, day out, all the time with these young players, because they are young. They don't know what is it at the top level. They've not been through this. They'll get up, they'll get down, but they need help to go up again. That's happened with everyone. It's going to happen with them as well. And we need to find a way. We need to find a 3-year plan of how we can make the Virat Kohlis, the Pujaras, the Ajinkya Rahanes, the Shikhar Dhawans into finished products, because you got nobody else. Rahul Dravid's 42, Tendulkar is 42, they're gone. They're past their best, and they will not come back and bat for India again. So it is these boys who need to be looked after and make sure we get better, because we've been appalling in the last 4 years in overseas conditions, and it's not getting better. We have to address it, and if we don't address it, come Australia in December, we will again have 3-day test matches, trust me.
Well, those are very, very wise words coming from Sourav Ganguly, and I hope that the powers that be at the BCCI are listening. So far, they're more keen on ensuring that the IPL schedule fits in, that they're able to get money into their bank. Concerns like losing abroad don't seem to bother them very much, but as cricket fans and lovers, this is indeed very troublesome. Sourav Ganguly has some great ideas. We need to involve the Gangulys and the Dravids of the world to ensure that Indian cricket does not falter in this fashion. For the time being, Sourav Ganguly, for joining us from London live tonight, thank you very much. We're slipping into a quick break. News and updates will continue when we come back on the other side. Look forward to seeing you at 9:30 p.m. tomorrow evening. Till then, from all of us here at the Centre Stage team, thank you, good night and goodbye.